Few would argue the majesty and destructive potential possessed by the sandworms of Arrakis. They are among the most feared, revered, and misunderstood creatures in the known universe. The dangerous aura that surrounds them and the inhospitable remoteness of their habitat do well to stoke fanciful imagination and false tales. The mystery shrouds the sandworms' great significance, not just among the desert culture of the Fremen, but of humanity's Imperium and their connection to the priceless spice melange of Arrakis. But what exactly are the sandworms? Where do they come from and what role do they play, both in mankind's past and its far distant future? The sandworm is the symbol of Arrakis. It burrows and patrols the sands of the deep desert, protecting, as a great dragon does a hoard of glittering treasure, priceless deposits of spice. It's a force of nature, an apex predator, a source of religious prophecy. Most impressive is the creature's sheer size. Mature worms have been documented at 450 meters in length, dwarfing the impressive 380-meter Empire State Building of our own world. And some believe there's no limit to their growth, extending as far as a kilometer, with a diameter of 60 meters or more. To reach such a size, the sandworm consumes large amounts of food, its preferred diet the desert sands plentiful on Arrakis. Like massive vacuums, they engulf rock and rubble into gaping maws, grinding larger objects with countless razor-sharp teeth, and digest the sand into useful fuel. They're often described as having an internal heat, a deep flame in their body that burns hot, perhaps suggestive of great reactions taking place during digestion. As they burrow through the desert and slide over dunes, the sandworm generates copious amounts of static electricity. This dry lightning is discharged in terrible flashes as the worm breaches alongside a reek of ozone. The result is a truly terrifying and awe-inspiring show of nature's potential. Sandworms are territorial and aggressive. They're drawn by vibrations in the sand that alert them to activity and are acutely aware. To merely walk across open dunes invites worms miles away, adding to their danger. An impregnable coat of scale skin surrounds the sandworm's frame like armor. Few objects can harm them. Even laser guns are deflected off their carapace. In fact, only 3 means of killing a sandworm are known: the use of atomics, the administration of high-voltage electricity to each of its many body segments, or, most surprisingly, by drowning it in water. We'll return to this last method later. Despite its many integral roles, the sandworm is not a native of Arrakis, but rather brought from an unknown world by a mysterious race long before the Carino Empire and even the Butlerian Jihad, going far into the recesses of myth. In fact, this invasive species is largely responsible for creating Arrakis from a world teeming with water and life into a harsh, inhospitable, and endless waste. This we hear from God Emperor Leto II while accessing his other memories and past lives. The sand trout was introduced here from some other place. This was a wet planet then. They proliferated beyond the capability of existing ecosystems to deal with them. Sand trout insisted the available free water, made this a desert planet, and they did it to survive. In a planet sufficiently dry, they could move to their sandworm phase. Sandworms are vulnerable to water. In high enough concentrations, it acts as a poison that quickly kills, and so they avoid it at all costs and are keenly sensitive. The creatures are great terraformers that mold the environment to suit their needs over centuries and generations through the process of desertification. Moisture in the air, in the earth, and organic matter is slowly removed or else transformed into substances inert and non-volatile to sandworm bodies. But how exactly does this unfold? The sandworm life cycle is complex and misunderstood by many within the Imperium. But from the smallest beginnings are monstrous behemoths born. Life begins with microscopic and largely undifferentiated organisms called sand plankton, created and spread by the movement of sandworms, as documented by the imperial planetologist Pardo Kynes. Shai-hulud to scatter the spice upon which fed microscopic creatures called sand plankton. The plankton, as they mature, feed on spice as well as others of their kind until they grow large enough to transform into the next stage. Fremen folk stories describe this phase as a sand trout, a sand swimmer large enough to see with the naked eye that resembles a protean ooze, an amorphous mass. The larval sand trout are water seekers. They hunt for a planet's moisture, and once gathered in large amounts, they sequester this liquid, toxic to adult worms. To do so, thousands upon thousands, sometimes millions of sand trout enclose a pocket of water beneath the sands by interlocking with one another to form a contiguous, live barrier. This behavior has two benefits. First, it removes the danger to sandworms posed by the presence of water. Second, it leads to an explosive chemical and thermogenic reaction, the energy of which is harnessed to give rise to the next phase of the cycle. Water, gases, other inorganic and organic materials are gathered under significant pressure within the sand trout cyst. Once it reaches a critical threshold, it can no longer be contained and erupts in a massive surge of energy. Most sand trout are killed by this reaction. Those that survive merge together and over many years are transformed into a young sandworm. The sandworm then grows and continues the cycle. The lifespan of a worm is unknown by many, but purported to last upwards of 1,000 years. Once death finally comes, by drowning or by conflict with another of its kind, a sandworm dissolves and disbands into countless sand trout released to the dunes, thus starting anew. The sandworm cycle is inextricably linked to production of the most prized resource in all of Dune's Imperium, the tantalizing spice melange. Those non-native to Arrakis, and indeed many of its ruling houses through history, are oblivious to the relationship between spice and the sandworm. The aforementioned reaction between sand trout and an enclosed volume of water is known as a pre-spice mass. As the terminology of the Imperium Appendix in the first Dune novel relates, the Little Maker is the half-plant, half-animal deep sand vector of the Arrakis sandworm. The Little Maker's excretions form the pre-spice mass. When the energy is unleashed, it roils to the surface and erupts in a spice blow. This substance is then subjected to the surface of Arrakis and the heat of the sun, by which it is transformed into the spice desired by all. It's for this reason that the sandworm and its younger forms are called by Fremen Maker and Little Maker. They are the progenitors of the spice, creators of Arakeen glory. It's a tenuous balance for the great houses of the Empire, who wish to exploit and harvest as much spice as they can, filling coffers with immeasurable wealth. But spice harvest is a slow and treacherous gambit, the precious resource guarded by the great sandworms. Many would like to eradicate the worms in free gathering. Little do they know that an end to the worm would mean an end to the spice. Without spice and its use by the Spacing Guild, the Empire would collapse in planetary isolation. Beyond the shaping of sands and fortunes, Dune's worms are integral to culture, religion, and society for the wandering bands of Fremen native to Arrakis. The Fremen call it by many names: Maker, Old Man of the Desert, Old Man Eternity, Shai-hulud. They see in it a raw manifestation of life, of the force of nature, and they revere it as the embodiment of their earth god. The sandworm is a spiritual symbol of Fremen faith, a physical symbol of Fremen endurance and savagery. It's the subject of many songs and poems. Teeth loosened from its maw are revered as ceremonial blades known as crysknives. The blades, once unsheathed, must drink blood. More so than spice, the desert folk have unlocked the secret to the water of life. This liquid is an extremely potent and concentrated spice bile produced by a young or stunted sandworm upon its death. Fremen tribes capture small worms and drown them in large bodies of gathered water to kill and produce the blue liquid. The water of life is used in the creation ritual of Sayadinas, or Fremen wise women, and in the spice agony that unlocks access to ancestral other memories for a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother. The lethal substance is diluted and used as a wide-spectrum narcotic to facilitate spice orgies within Fremen sieges, whereby shared visions connect more deeply the tribe. Though they hold Shai-hulud in high esteem, Fremen are aware of the danger innate to the sandworms. They have perfected the art of the desert dance, a method by which they alter their movements in erratic fashion to simulate the sounds and pressures of the natural sands. Thus, they are able to navigate dunes without attracting the worm's wrath. For great distances, however, Fremen actually call on the sandworm. It was the legendary Selim Worm Rider in ages long past who first mounted God and directed its relentless power. Using thumper devices, they bring the attention of a sandworm. Once it arrives, they lash onto the beast with hook and rope and ride its back in a method held dearly secret. Atop the great creatures are Fremen bands able to cross expanses of desert in little time, aiding to their reputation as wraiths of Arrakis. The sandworm's mystique travels beyond Arrakis. As Fremen tore across the Imperium in fevered violence during Muad'Dib's jihad in the age of Paul Atreides, so too did their Zen Sunni religion and cultural practices gain foothold on countless planets. This spread their beliefs, superstitions, and hopes surrounding the sandworms of Dune, and attributed to the creature's awe and majesty to the very fringes of known space. Shai-hulud was revered by all. But the timeline of mankind is long and treacherous. What fate faces the old man of the desert at its end? A brief warning that story spoilers for Dune and its sequels are about to be discussed. Much tumult affects the creatures of Arrakis in the years of the Atreides Empire and beyond. Under Paul, the intricate cycle that tied sandworm to spice continued unrecognized by most. It wasn't until the species went nearly extinct in his son's reign that the importance of the worm was truly appreciated. During the long, tyrannical reign of God Emperor Leto II Atreides, the planet Arrakis underwent significant terraforming, restoring to its surface trees, plains, rivers, and lakes it had known in its ancient past. With such high volumes of toxic water, and with their habitat destroyed, the sandworms slowly disappeared. The last remnant present in Leto himself, as a human-worm hybrid who lived for roughly 3,500 years. Without the worm, no new spice could be produced, which allowed Leto absolute control over the Empire's various factions, who were slaves to the trickle allowance granted from his spice hoards, and afforded him stewardship of all humanity along his golden path. When the God Emperor was finally slain, his sandworm body disintegrated into thousands of the larval sand trout, who escaped into the wilds and began once more the slow process of desertification. Over many lifetimes, Arrakis saw its dunes and its worms return. The worms produced by Leto's death, according to the God Emperor, were possessed of small pearls of his own consciousness. They had within them a lingering humanity, a small sentience that worked to lightly guide their actions while Leto remained in an endless dream. It's because of this that they are revered as the divided god far into the future. No longer Shai-hulud, but Shai-tan, once a word with negative connotations to describe evil and devilry, perhaps alluding to their connection to the terrible God Emperor. The Rakian priesthood that rules the planet in the days after the Atreides Empire no less worships the worm, but great caution is taken, and it's now a death sentence to ride Shai-tan. They see it as a creator, yes, but also as a great destroyer. They seek to understand its wisdom and perhaps awaken their divided god from eternal dream. For long, the worms rule the open sands until war between the Bene Gesserit sisterhood and the honored matres of the Scattering comes to Arrakis and turns the planet to slag, destroying all life, including the sandworm. Or so it is believed. But gods aren't so easily killed. Nearly 40 years after the sterilization of Arrakis, massive sandworms which had survived deep under the earth crack through the planet's glassy surface in a show of indomitable vitality. The apex predator, the symbol of Arrakis, the manifestation of time, of death, of divinity, remains to assert its grandeur, a species tied to the very fate of the planet and of humankind. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this video on the Sandworms of Dune. Let me know your thoughts on the gods of Arrakis, their connection to spice and religion, as well as your own insights and suggestions for future videos in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel, check out the podcast where content is uploaded frequently. I want to thank my amazing supporters over on Patreon who make all of this possible, and I couldn't do it without their fantastic support. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, a great community, written scripts, and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.